We assembled here today are issuing a new decree to be heard in every city, in every foreign capital, and in every hall of power. From this day forward, a new America first. First, 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 first. And I will never, ever let you down. Assembled here today are issuing a new decree to be heard in every city, in every foreign capital, and in every hall of power. From this day forward, a new
Can hear nothing. Wait. Where are you? I don't know. Might be my music track. Let's see. I cannot hear you, Karyn. I can't hear anything. We went so smoothly. See. Got nothing. Let's see if the chat can hear any of. Can you hear me? Let me see, Karyn. Let's see. Cancellation. It was going so smoothly until it wasn't. Let me. To stage. Let's see. Okay.
Wake up, Patriots. I'm back. Anything? Wake up.
Hear you.
You can hear me? You can't hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Oh, you can? That's amazing.
I don't know what happened. I thought my morning intro was going so smoothly. I was so excited for our new song.
You did good. You know, I have to say, I love the graphic at the beginning. The graphic was amazing. I think that the chat definitely agrees. I saw Trixie was in there really early. So everybody's here. They're ready for Wonderland. You know, a little hiccup. It's only 9:08. We're still early in the show.
Were you able to hear our fun Trump song? Did you hear that?
I could not hear it. I had no sound whatsoever. I could hear you.
Fun.
Was it fun? I missed it entirely. But there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Donald Trump today. You know, on Wednesday, as I always do, I went down a rabbit hole, and my rabbit hole started really with what we talked about yesterday and Nancy Pelosi and some of the things that we're going to talk about with Jim Hoft, who's the founder of Gateway Pundit, who's coming to join us. And it turned into a whole other rabbit hole, because this is what happens to me. I end up going down the rabbit hole, and then you discover that there's all these hidden facts that you were unaware of. Kristin, did you know that yesterday, one of the legal counsel for Donald Trump, one of his legal advisors, went ahead and issued a letter to all the Republican members of the House? Were you aware of this letter about this lawfare yesterday?
I was not. What's in the letter?
Well, we're going to get to that. And I mean, there has been $2 million spent by the DNC directly to go ahead and fund, you know, this lawfare at this point. And I mean, you say it all the time, you know, you're the money girl on the show, follow the money. Well, I followed the money, and the money goes straight back to the DNC, the law firm that represented E. Jean Carroll. And there's just so many legs on this thing. So we're going to get to that. We're going to get to some interesting donors for the Democrats, because as we know, you know, it's always the dirty hands pointing the fingers. And, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about Ed Buck. And I don't know if you know Ed Buck, but Ed Buck is basically been sentenced to 30 years, which ironically is the same amount of time that David, who is Nancy Pelosi's husband's friend, David, we remember David, was also sentenced to 30 years for attacking Paul Pelosi with a hammer. And obviously that's tragic. The man's, you know, 84 years old. But this man, Ed Buck, who was sentenced to 30 years, he was drugging and raping and giving people crystal meth, and they were dying. And he killed people. I mean, he's a murderer. And he donated $500,000 directly to Nancy Pelosi's PAC. You know, he was an openly gay man. He supported LGBTQ causes and all of this stuff. But meanwhile, he was drugging and killing young Black men. So really crazy story. We're going to go down the rabbit hole a little bit on that. We're going to talk a little bit about AOC, too, because I can't resist, because we are not looking good on the world stage. People are making fun of us. And it's no surprise when you have representatives in Congress that want to embarrass themselves on the behalf of the American people. And I think, Kristin, you teased us a little bit. You accidentally showed the clip for a quick second. But I want to show this clip, and then we'll get into some more stuff. But I want to show this clip from Sky News that shows what an embarrassment America is to the rest of the world. Go ahead and play it.
AOC, who's best known as America's Lydia Thorpe. Apparently, we all have at least one. She's a Democrat, and she's currently campaigning in the Bronx. Check out this extraordinary display designed to get votes. political cringe.
Another little glitch, but it's okay because we saw the most of it. I mean, I think everybody gets the picture. Can you believe that this is somebody who is elected to represent the American people in Congress? I mean, even though she's a Democrat, this is off the rails, Kristin.
I mean, I don't know in what world that it's acceptable for politicians, elected officials, to behave that way. You know, we used to have a society that, you know, we looked up to these people, and now I just think they're all jokes. Everybody on the left is a joke, right?
I mean, obviously, Sky News Australia thinks we're a joke. That's for sure, based on what they were talking about. You know, there's no way that this can go on and that people aren't going to make fun of it, and we're a laughing stock. It's not bad enough that we have a man who sometimes can't remember what he ate for breakfast in the White House, but we've got this to contend with as well. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's mind-boggling. And then she wins her primary yesterday. So the voters, again, have brought her in as their chosen one. This is what they're choosing for themselves. This is a representation. Who are these people is what I keep asking myself. And that might be the new Wonderland Wednesday title. Like, who are these people? Because that was what I kept asking myself as I went down this DNC rabbit hole. And I know we've got Jim coming up, who's the founder of Gateway Pundit, really excited because he's got an inside track on the FBI turning off these security cameras at Mar-a-Lago, which Christina Bobb told us about on our former morning show, Ed and I, years ago. I mean, this is not new news, and nobody wanted to listen. And now, of course, that it's come to light, the Gateway Pundit is all over this. So we're going to talk to him about that. I also want to talk to him. MSNBC is really angry with him. And I think it's really funny because, you know, Jim is a man who speaks his mind, which is why we have him on this show. And he's got some things going on. He's in court over some bankruptcy proceedings and other things with a lot of other people that are dealing with, you know, Bidenomics right now. I mean, there's a lot happening. And he is fuming and he has every right to be angry. And he has really made MSNBC crazy. And I loved every minute of it. So I'm excited for him to join us. And I bet you he's going to weigh in on this DNC stuff because I guarantee he knows a lot about it. So we're talking $2 million since 2021. This went to Kaplan, Hecker, and Fink for legal services. Now, let's remember, Kaplan, Hecker, and Fink. Does the word Kaplan, anybody in the chat, I'm wondering if they're going to, I bet you they're going to catch this. So Roberta Kaplan is the lawyer who repped E. Jean Carroll. So we're talking about the head of this law firm that has paid $2 million since 2021 to the DNC that they have paid, the DNC has paid them $2 million for legal services, is the same law firm that represented E. Jean Carroll, the head partner. So there we go. And then the other funder of the E. Jean Carroll lawsuit was Reid Hoffman, who you remember is the Lincoln billionaire. So he paid at least the majority of her legal fees. So it's all connected. You know, you can put the dots together. But Davis, this legal advisor, now has issued this letter, and the letter has really good points in it. And he's calling on House Republicans to do everything that they can, because this clearly shows transparently that it was being funded by the DNC. I mean, how can you interpret this any other way? There's just no other way to interpret it. So now when you go down the rabbit hole a little bit more, you notice that, you know, there's alumni from these law firms that have ended up in major roles in the Biden administration. You know, you've also got just clear evidence right here that this is happening. And in April, a DNC spokesperson, his name is Alex Floyd, I found the statement from him. And the statement says, the DNC does not spend a single penny of grassroots donors' money on legal bills. So, you know, they're the kings of semantics, these Democrats. So I have to say to myself, grassroots donors. So are we talking like mom and pop, like the guy who gives us $5? We're not spending that money. But you know what? We have no problem with the $500,000 that Ed Buck gave us because he's a dirty doer. And maybe they're using that money. I mean, whose money is it? Does it even matter? It's not a grassroots donor. So I'm looking at that statement and I'm already reading in between the lines and I'm saying to myself, this is semantics, grassroots donor money. So, I didn't say we didn't spend any money, but we didn't spend the grassroots donor money. So this $2 million came from somewhere. The question is where? Not grassroots donor money, but where? Alex. Does Alex want to come on the show? Alex Floyd, you want to come join us in the rabbit hole and talk to us about why in April, as a DNC spokesperson, you said you didn't spend any money, and now we have this $2 million paper trail? I'd be happy to have you. I mean, Wonderland Wednesday would love to have a Democrat, especially somebody from the DNC on the show. Come on. So at any rate, right now, there's been just clear evidence that they're using the donor money. They have used, things to facilitate this Biden administration again and again and again. And this letter, I want to get to some of the points in it. I'm just trying to look at my notes here. But I took some of the bullet points. There's about 6 of them that are really important. So the first one is to pass the appropriations riders that are proposed by Andrew Clyde, which is a representative from Georgia. It'll defund any local, state, or federal prosecution of any presidential candidate until after the November 2024 election. So that would pretty much put a stopgap on a lot of these proceedings, right? Basically, they waited 30 months to bring up these unprecedented bogus charges against President Trump. So why can't they wait till after the election? That's the whole point that he's making. They waited this long. Let's just wait until after the election. That seems very fair. So that's the first point. The second point is that House Judiciary Republicans need to obtain every piece of correspondence that's related to President Donald Trump from New York Attorney Letitia James, Bragg, the prosecutor in Manhattan. It goes on and on and on. So he's got a list of all of these people that they need to obtain these things from. And I think that's very important. Then he calls on Jim Jordan specifically, as the House chairman, and says that he must issue subpoenas for documents and require sworn testimony of those involved in the Biden White House, the Biden Justice Department, all of it. And then he asked for a criminal referral for the prosecution of lying against Senator Tom Cotton. There's a bunch of things, but I think all of these things are really important. But ultimately, what is the most important is the DNC has lied once again. They said in April that they're not spending money. They directly gave $2 million to the law firm that is representing E. Jean Carroll, who initiated this lawsuit. And now they're again using this weaponized lawfare to go after President Trump. And basically, he says it best. Trump was right. I'm only in the way. They're going after you. And that's what they're doing, Kristin. They're going after me. They're going after you with all this lawfare and everything they're doing. And this morning, I went on Substack because I've started to become a little bit of a Substack fan, which I'm surprised at. And I saw our good friend, Naomi Wolf. And Naomi Wolf is going to come on with us hopefully next week and talk to us. But I don't know if you follow her on X, Kristin. I don't know if our chat follows her, but she's actually been putting out these videos where she's reading from the Puritan Geneva Bible, which I didn't know a lot about, but I find the whole thing fascinating. It's translated from Hebrew, so from the original Old Testament. And in 1560, they created this Bible to basically be the unaltered word of God. They tried to translate this from the Hebrew directly. And she was talking all about Exodus 28, where Moses is given the instructions to build a house. And, this is basically like the Art of the Covenant, and to dress his brothers in priestly robes. We'll all remember that part of Exodus. And basically, it was all about, serving the Lord and, assembling his family and creating a home, creating a family. And it was all about God not being in the firmament and God being with us here in the present. And, as she talked about this, she said, this is such a good time to talk about this, and not only is prayer powerful, but that God is here with us every day, fighting these battles alongside us, fighting these battles alongside President Trump. And the more we put our focus and our sight on that, the better off we are, which is why we read Jesus Calling every morning. But this morning, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to pay a little homage to Naomi Wolf. And I want to give her a shout out and tell her how much she really inspired me this morning. And I want to read a little passage from Exodus. So here we go, Exodus 7-9. It is mysterious to human eyes why some believe and some do not. Yet in the ultimacy of God's purpose, it is clear. Pharaoh made a conscious choice to let God's people go, and he did so according to the will of God. This purpose of God is what the extraordinary power of God has to rescue us against all odds, and this can be revealed to the whole world. But for this purpose, I have raised you up to show you my power, so that my name may be proclaimed in all the earth. God hardens Pharaoh's heart, so God's almighty power can be seen all over throughout the whole world. So he shows the world his power. And I just thought that was so important to remember, that God is showing us his power right now, and that he's in control. So I just want to say amen to that. And I hope that you guys are inspired by that the way I was inspired by Dr. Wolf this morning.
That was great. And we have Jim Hoft sitting
Amazing.
backstage. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, Karyn. It's so good to see you.
So good to see you.
Well, Kristin, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So, we call this Wonderland Wednesday around here, Jim. Wonderland Wednesday is when we go down the rabbit hole. And, you're one of my favorite rabbit hole occupants. I see you there often. And I absolutely am fangirling right now, because I love that you have made MSNBC so angry. And I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about why you're infuriated, and why it's so rightfully perfect, and why they're so mad.
Isn't that something? I didn't even know that until I was sitting in the backstage to come on your show, Karyn. And yeah, so I just pulled it up on the internet. There it is. MSNBC is attacking us once again, and they're very upset, I guess, that we chose this strategy to help us get out of this situation we're in. It's been very costly, as you know. We're not the only ones who've been victims of lawfare. I think we've seen what Donald Trump has gone through, and there's no one in the history of the planet that is as much lawfare as Donald Trump. But we're kind of the residual. We also got caught up in some of these outrageous cases, and so this is the plan we had, and we decided to file a Chapter 11 in Florida, where I'm living now, not far from you guys. And so that was our strategy. We found out. I got to tell you, we found out something. I spoke to Steve Bannon about this last week, but we found out that after we filed this, the Department of Justice came out, and they were pressuring this trustee, who's in this case, to put the hammer down on us and make sure that this process does not move forward. So we heard that from a couple different sources. And so this is what the DOJ is doing now, getting themselves involved in a bankruptcy hearing in Florida. And let me tell you one other thing that happened. There's a 341 hearing that goes along with this. Of course, I've never filed for a bankruptcy before. And this is one of the first steps you go through. It's supposed to be about 15 minutes. You can read that online. It says, I expect 10 to 15 minutes. They go over your documents. They kind of check things off and make sure everything's, your package is together, and that they move it forward. When I went in there, it was a 2-hour grilling by this trustee with the DOJ. And then when he was through, which I had no idea I was stepping into this. It's like walking in a room and everybody throwing daggers at you. You have no idea.
They like to do that. It's a surprise. It's the element of surprise, Jim. They love that.
They certainly did with me. And so then he gets done with 2 hours and says, okay, now we're going to have another second session on last Tuesday. So last Tuesday we step in, and another 2 hours of grilling, and a lot of us insults and defamatory statements, and and I'm sitting there wondering if this is normal. And of course, I find out later this is nothing but normal. What this guy was doing, and so I think he was doing what the DOJ told him to do, and I expect that we did come out with this publicly, and I expect that I would like for us to file a complaint with the DOJ, because this is unheard of, and it should not be. This isn't the way the law is supposed to work. As we see with so many things today, the law is not supposed to work this way. So we're going to push back and keep fighting, and hopefully we'll have our day in court.
Hopefully you'll have more luck complaining to DOJ, as someone who's gone to Bill Barr previously and complained about the DOJ and not had great results. Hopefully now things will be a little bit better for you in that respect. But, I think this illustrates so well, Kristin, and I want you to weigh in. The lawfare that's happening, you talked a lot about Donald Trump. I'm sure we're going to talk about, these cameras being turned off at Mar-a-Lago and all these other issues. But Jim's experience is the same thing, Kristin. This is Lawfare 101.
I mean, I feel bad for you, Jim, because I've been your friend for years, and I love your brother.
Right.
I know you guys, and I've worked with your brother for years. And to be the target of political vengeance is difficult. And having worked, from my perspective, and I'm just a little fish over here, having worked for Roger and all these people for years. I've been sucked into all the investigations. So I had to testify for Mueller, for the Jan 6 committee, twice for Mueller. And, the whole thing was incredibly stressful, expensive. That's the thing that people don't, really necessarily understand, the expense that goes along with these things, and how, that's their intent, is to take you out of business, to cripple you financially so that you don't have a chance to ever rebuild your life, which is what they did to Alex Jones. And you don't have a lot of, unless you are a billionaire, it's very difficult to fight these things. And, as someone who has gone through bankruptcy many years ago, decades ago, when I screwed up my life, when I had my own issues, that's not common. I was in and out of there in 15 minutes, maybe 10. It was like stamp, ask a couple questions and on your way. And so for you to be there for multiple times, extended period of times, means that someone else is orchestrating, determining, from higher up what's fair for you. And not even fair, they're determining like what's going to happen for you. And that's not okay, because that's not fair. That it should be between you and the judge, and that's it. And whoever else is in that room, not, the higher powers.
Absolutely. I'd like to add something, you guys, too. When we file for this, it's supposed to be a financial situation, right? This isn't anything else. This isn't politics. This is looking at our finances, making a decision, taking this move, right? That's what it was. And yet what we're hearing is from the lawyers in this area and who are involved. And for the record, when we were on one of these hearing calls this last week, we find out later that my attorney tells me he got kicked off the call. He joins back in. He finds out 15 different people are on this call. We don't even know who they were. We don't know who they were with, if they were with the DOJ. We have no idea who was joining in on this call. And then within 24 hours, the content of this hearing, as I'm reading today in MSNBC, some of the content of this hearing is leaked to the press. So it's on MSNBC, it's on Insider.com, and other places. And then we hear that this is a highly charged bankruptcy, situation, and it's very high profile. And I'm like, why? This is a financial situation. Again, this isn't politics. This is us addressing a financial situation that we're involved in. So they're making this. The left is making this. The DOJ is making this a situation that is more than financial, but they're making it a political situation. And you can see with their headlines in the news. And I think it's absolutely disgusting too that we're told as conservatives to keep our mouths shut, and just take all this abuse and say nothing. And you guys, I have no intention at all of being quiet during this process. We have nothing to hide. We never had anything to hide. We reported the truth on November 3rd and 4th, what happened those days. We have video proof. We have document proof. We have proof from the state of Georgia that backs up all of our assertions, okay? Formal documents that they released back up what we said. We have done nothing wrong in this case. We see that these two women that, of course, are suing us, they have never had to stand for in front of a court and explain what they were doing. We would actually like to see that happen. And I just would like to have our side of the story come out, because for 3 years, we've heard the media explain, you know, what the situation was. And as you guys know, the media today will always, let me stress that, will always lie to the American people. They are never going to tell you the truth, and especially in a situation like this. And so we get hammered. We look like villains. They put that we have a Porsche that's worth $54,000. Woo! You know, I mean, it's not a $300,000 Porsche. It's
a Porsche. But it's a
right,
Porsche, and they're going to use the word Porsche. They don't care.
That out there. They have to throw out all these things.
I just want to stop you real quick because I want to put this in a quick perspective for you. And I'm going to bring myself personally into this conversation for a minute because I think it's going to make you personally feel better. As somebody who took a plea bargain, and people said to me, why'd you take a plea bargain? Well, because it would have been 6 figures that I couldn't feed my kids with to fight it. And to take a $17,000 financial misdemeanor really didn't hurt me in the big picture. And it just made the most sense to me pragmatically. But they will back you into a corner. And the judge that sentenced me, the magistrate that sentenced me, it's the same magistrate that raided Mar-a-Lago. And now we're finding out that the security cameras were turned off and all this other stuff. But it's too little, it's too late. It's too little, too late for you. It's already out there. You have a Porsche. Do you know what they said? You know what the mainstream media said that I did with $17,000? Because if I did this with $17,000, Jim, I would be the best money manager on the planet. They said that I bought homes in Wellington. I went to equestrian events. I bought horses and cars for $17,000. So, I mean, a $52,000 Porsche, of course they're all over it.
Right. It's just absolutely disgusting. And, you know, what are these people driving? I just can't even imagine. You know, I've worked 20 years to build up a website myself from nothing to 2.7 million page visits a day. And, you know, and we're targeted all the time. I don't have anything to hide. And so this is where I'm at. And this is where they're going to try to define me. And by the grace of God, I just hope that we can get through and get our side of the story out.
Yeah, well, you know what? You have a great resource to do it, right? You have the Gateway Pundit. Maybe the Gateway Pundit will write about this, Kristin.
Well, and you know, Jim, I think what people, I understood some of this 15 years ago, which was, you know, when Trump says, I'm just in the way, right? They're coming for you. What he left out of that is, and anyone who supports me, you could be collateral damage, right? Because that's really the truth. Everyone around him that has tried to step up, has tried to say the truth, from Rudy Giuliani, General Flynn, Roger Stone, everyone has been collateral damage. Nobody really hates Rudy Giuliani. I'm a New Yorker. We love Giuliani for what he did. For New York City. He was America's mayor, you know, but now he's deemed a crazy man. He's not credible. I know Rudy. I represented Rudy. And, you know, he's wonderful. And it's like, you know, so everyone that supports somebody who has such vitriol from a certain group of people and people with money, you're just, you know, collateral damage. And that's the scary part, because it could just be anyone, right? Like you said, you built up Gateway, you were a one-man shop, and then it was, you know, you and your brother, and, you know, I did all your brother's PR for his books, and we were just plugging along, and then all of a sudden you guys just grew and blew up, and now you're attacked, because now, you know, now you have a fan base and they're going to come for you. So, you know, I think that's something everybody has to keep in mind.
Yeah. You know, Proud American Woman in the chat, Jim. Proud American Woman was just weighing in, and I'm reading our chat because, you know, Jim, I love to interact with the audience. I know you do too. And she was saying they just want to put everybody in jail. Isn't that the story here, Jim? They want to put everybody in jail.
They want to, well, of course, bankrupt you first. And then in jail, and then make sure that you're suffering the rest of your life. These are really vicious Marxists we're up against. I don't know what else you could call them. These are not good people, of course. They know that they don't have cases in half of these, you know, incidents that they're, you know, charging us for all these crimes. They know they're not crimes. They make things up, but they just want us destroyed. So anyway, I am praying to God that we come out of this, and I think we will. And I think if the truth will come out, we'll be much more than vindicated. And I know that they're absolutely frightened of that too. They don't want us to bring this to a trial. I'm sure of it, because they know they have nothing, and they've lied to the American people. They've given people these two women winning awards at the White House. I mean, for what, right? And it just goes on and on. And I just pray that, you know, we're going to get our chance to tell the story, to tell the truth, to show the documents, to show video. I mean, amazing that we have video evidence, right, that we've had since day one, and yet we're being charged for some ridiculous crimes and something we never intended. And it just goes on and on. But by the grace of God, we're going to get through this.
So you're exposing the playbook of the DNC, which we exposed a little bit on the rabbit hole before you came on, where there's this $2 million that I've just discovered this paper trail on that went to Kaplan, Heckler, and Fink, you know. And I just look at this and I say to myself, how is this even possible? And I mean, this is public record. I mean, this is from the FEC. It's not that I'm making up that this $2 million exists. This is an FEC filing. It is legal services, $2 million, and this has been paid since 2021. It's so transparent, but yet is what we're up against so big that we're not going to be able to fight it, Jim? And when you say you want to pray and you want to reflect on all these things, my heart goes out to you, because it's scary to think that there isn't any recourse for justice or the truth anymore. You keep saying it. We're telling the truth. And you have all this evidence. And what it says to me and what it says to our audience is that you're giving out the playbook on how they manipulated this election in their favor. And now here we are again. They're trying to silence you because the election's coming up and they want to manipulate another election. Is that just the bottom line here? And are they going to do it? If they succeed, are we going to have bird flu? What's next?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question, Karyn. I think for one, the fact that we're just one little website and there's a few other websites like ours and there's shows like yours, and the fact that 50 to 60% of Americans still today believe that there was cheating that affected the 2020 election, 60+% are worried that cheating is going to affect 2024. So people are onto it. And that's why they're so furious with websites like Gateway Pundit, because we're just one little voice. And yet we, we'll write a story and I'll be walking down the street and I'll have like an electrician. One time came over to our house and started to preach to me about one of the stories that we put up 3 days before. So they just go viral. The truth always goes viral, guys. And that's what they hate. They really detest the fact that we can put out the truth and it will go like wildfire, and they can't stop it. And that's why they want to stop us and stop you and everyone else, because the truth will always resonate with human beings. I think for 2024, this election, I think people need to pull their heads out of the sand. And if they think that this is going to be just, we see that Trump is very much ahead. We see that Trump, his crowds are larger, his support is larger. He's drawing in different types of people, like the Black community, and he has a new rapper every week who's coming out in support of him. The Black community is ripe for the pickings this year. So all of these wonderful things are happening, but what must happen is that they must address the any inkling that fraud may happen. One of the things that we wrote about this week, guys, is there are millions and millions of fake registrations on the voter rolls around this country. That isn't news. That's something we all know. In Wisconsin, that is on the ERIC system, they have 4 million eligible voters, and they had 7 million people registered on their voter rolls. What does that do? It allows Democrats to cheat. It allows them to dump ballots into drop boxes, to mail them in, and nobody knows who these people are, where they're coming from. What we reported this week was that we have to clean up those voter rolls, because 90 days before the election, they won't allow you to do these bulk removal of people from the voter rolls. So I'm hoping to push this more and more loudly in the next couple of weeks, because we have to get these voter rolls cleaned up in the next couple of weeks, because on August 7th, they won't allow you to do it anymore. That's very critical. We have to get rid of these extra names. They can cheat when they have extra names, right? And so that's my theory, and I think that's very important that we do this. I think that's one thing we can do at Gateway Pundit, is to push that in the next few weeks, because we have to clean up these voter rolls. And there's a lot of people out there and a lot of groups that are able to identify the fake registrations. So we just need people to push that forward and make sure that they're removed from the rolls before August 7th.
It seems so simple, Kristin, like, being able to clean up these voter rolls, yet it hasn't happened. It has not happened. And we've got the chats on fire, and insiders talking about that in Finland, they just came out with a bird flu vaccine. So I think that's a little bit telling in the scheme of things, but we'll see what happens. But remember how much COVID played into this, Kristin? Remember how much COVID played into the dead voters and everything else? It's just a little bit scary on Wonderland Wednesday. I know I'm a little bit, of a conspiracy theorist with this bird flu thing, but what are you thinking?
I'm personally, I know what Jim is saying is accurate. I've done enough campaigns to where I know that if I'm looking to advance my candidate, I'm looking at the rules and different factors, right? I've gone into conventions stacking delegates because I knew I had to register them 6 months prior, to get people on the floor, to then get them to be delegates to take over the nominee. So I know that there are people on the left who are just sitting here looking at each state, looking at what the rules are, like you said, in August, and they're figuring out how to do this. So it's, from my perspective, it's completely, it's what they're doing. Throw in some bird flu and another issue. Well, now people are going to be diverted from actually looking at, what's going on. And they're going to not care because, if you throw out something that just has enough truth to it to incite some fear, then, people are operating from a fear-based reaction rather than logic. And, I think that's where we're going, sadly.
And and our chat's a little fearful too. And I realize I have not done our sponsor reads because we've been so hung up on these great topics today on Wonderland Wednesday, but I want to give a shout out to My Patriot Supply while I'm thinking about it, because when we talk about fear, we also have to talk about being prepared, and you can prepare with VNN.com, because America is facing real danger, Kristin, and only the danger that real Americans can be ready for. You want to be a defender of truth, you want to be a freedom fighter like Jim, and you need to know what's coming. And My Patriot Supply can give you an emergency kit to feed your family. It's a 4-week kit. You definitely need to have one of these. 2,000 calories. Great food, great tasting. Our chat talks about it all the time. And, you can order as many kits as you want. You're going to get $50 off on each one right now, and it's free shipping, but you have to go to preparewithvnn.com. So get yours if you haven't. And the other sponsor that I also want to give a shout out to is Done With Debt. I'll probably talk a little bit about them when we get more into Bidenomics, but they can help you not only get out of debt, Jim, and I know you're dealing with quite a few things too, but they work with you to create a customized strategy. So many of these, things are a template that they just want you to fit into a box. They actually look at your financial picture and say, hey, how can we help you? What do you specifically need? So you go to donewithdebt.com, you select VNN, donewithdebt.com, and have them help you. Have them look through your things, figure out what you can do in this terrible economy, because we're all struggling. Our entire chat's struggling. And we've got Me in there that brought something up on these voter rolls that I want to share with both of you. She said that Georgia supposedly went through the voter rolls, but her daughter got a new voter registration card. She doesn't live in Georgia. She actually has a Florida driver's license and lives in Florida. So even when they clean up these voter rolls, and Red Ginger asking if volunteers can clean up the rolls, can they help? Even when they do, is it even working, Jim? Is it working?
Well, we must do it. I think you're absolutely right. The left is always, they never sleep. We know that these people are always conniving, and they're always trying to do what they can to rig these elections. You look at something, I think, we have the proof all around us that they're going to cheat. For one, they're running Joe Biden, who is no one in a normal time would run Joe Biden. It's impossible that you would put someone up in front of, especially the American public. Can you imagine? They're putting this man who can't talk, who has a horrible record, who's insulting, who's terrorized half the country, whose DOJ is out. I'm a victim of this, going after his political opponents. So they couldn't do that. I think what's interesting too is that it's a state like Iowa, where Trump is ahead by 17 points in one of the latest polls. Iowa was a bellwether state. Ohio was a bellwether state just 4 years ago, 8 years ago. Florida was a bellwether state. These were the states, if you won these states, you would win the election for 100 years. Now all of a sudden, Iowa's at 17 plus Trump, but neighboring Wisconsin is somehow dead even or whatever. It tells you how much they put an apparatus in place that is just ripe with fraud, because it's really impossible. You look at Wisconsin too, and I mentioned this. I lived in Missouri full time. I live in Florida now, but in Missouri they have 8 representatives. 6 are Republican. Missouri votes 12 points, 15 points Republican now. Wisconsin has 8 representatives. 6 are Republican. But for some reason, the Democrats are winning these statewide races. It doesn't make sense. There's so many signs that the left is cheating, and we have to fight really hard. And so there are numerous things I think we can do, but we have to clean up the voter rolls. If they don't have all those millions of names lying around or possible voters, that's going to really hurt them, I think, and prevent them from committing widespread fraud. So that's one thing. And of course, there's a lot of other things people have talked about over the past 4 years that need to take place. But I think voter rolls is good. We at Gateway Pundit, of course, led the movement to get rid of this ERIC system in several of these states. It was a system designed and used in several states, 32 different states, to clean up voter rolls, they said. And yet we found that they never cleaned up voter rolls. And they were sharing information between states. And they were actually sharing information in 2020 with left-wing states. And so this wasn't a very good system. So we worked and informed people about what this was. And now 9 states have come off that ERIC system since we started doing our reports. So things like that are helpful, but we have to fight like hell this time, guys, because we can't go through another 4 years of this really tyrannical rule that the left is bringing down on us. And, God forbid if we lose any more courts to these wackadoodle, judges, and we just can't, we're not going to make it through that. I just don't think this is very important this year. And I think everybody knows it.
Yeah, it seems like it's like the last hurrah. Like this is it. Like if we don't fix this now, Jim, like our country's done. And our chat really feels that way. I'm looking at everybody in there, and we've got our friend George, born to ride for 45, said the supervisor of elections in Lake County, a Republican, got money from Facebook. And I don't really know where he's going with that, but I'm going to ask him to elaborate a little bit more because I'm curious what that is. And then I also have Lou, who's in our chat, Lou Peck, who wants your opinion on Space Force. So I'm going to get off topic for just a second, but he'd like to know what you think about Space Force, and I'd love for you to let him know.
Well, I think that was a genius move by Donald Trump, thinking out of the box and setting up Space Force before he left office. Of course, that's what's going to happen. We see in the wars right now. In Ukraine, they're testing out all this new technology. And what are they doing? Drones are ruling the skies, and drones is what is winning the wars for these people. And that's what we're going to see, I think, in the future. So, of course, we need something like Space Force. Of course, in the future, whoever rules the skies will rule the war or win the war. So, I think that was a brilliant move by President Trump. And it's amazing how many great ideas he had when he was in office, and he gets really little credit for it.
Yeah, and our chat's going crazy, Kristin. I don't know if you're reading this, but like now I have a J.K. Lutman who's saying that the counties, I guess that he or she lives in as well, got $800,000 from Facebook in 2020 to push out Republican candidates. So I don't know very much about this Facebook money, but maybe this is a rabbit hole that, we need to go down next Wonderland Wednesday. Maybe, you want to join us, Jim, from the Gateway Pundit, and maybe weigh in on this a little bit, because apparently this Facebook money, according to our chat, is a pretty big deal.
Well, it certainly was in 2020. We know that Mark Zuckerberg invested $500 million, almost $500 million into the election. And of course, it was money well spent, because they were able to use that and put up drop boxes around different states, push get out the vote efforts. And so, I think it was money well spent by the left and by Mark Zuckerberg. Now, several states have passed legislation that says you can't take Zuckerbucks in our state anymore. So that's a good thing. But of course, some of these battleground states, they're not included in those states that have actually taken action against this. So it's going to be interesting. But we'll have to see how much he's involved this time. But it did affect the election in 2020. We all know that.
Yeah, it is crazy. Mainstream media is at it again, Kristin. We just talk about this every day on this show, and it just seems like it's a big money system. And again, the math isn't mathing. Jim was talking about the math. The math doesn't add up. You're the math girl.
The math doesn't add up. And mainstream media, I don't think there's any coming back to fairness, right? I said this to actually Joe Flynn. I was talking to him yesterday, and the Flynns were hit hard. I'm sure you saw that, Jim, by the New York Times over the weekend. And the whole family was hit. And, it was a whole breakdown on General Flynn and how much he made in the nonprofits and how he paid his family members. And I was one of those people on the payroll back in the time when they were talking about this. So I'm reading this, and they're giving him a hard time because he, paid out his family. And he has, there's 9 of them. And so they have a big family. And of course, when you're working in something and you've already been screwed over by the government, right? And you've already been through a witch hunt, and your family's been there for you, and and love your family. Of course, you're going to employ your family. You employed your brother. This is just normal, but they've made it into being this awful thing that he's like funneling money to family members who probably do nothing. And I know 3 of his sisters, and they're brilliant women who write these amazing things. And I'm like, wow, this is just so awful. And I said to Joe, there's just never going to be any fairness ever again. And that's, what's hurtful to everyone, because there used to be a time when we could have 2 different sides on, and we would duke it out, and then we'd like shake hands and maybe, fist bump after, and then go our separate ways, and it wouldn't be so hateful.
We're living in a world of hate. Look at what you're going through. Again, the lawfare. And I know that you are in the hearts and prayers of our audience in our chat, with your struggles with this lawfare, them coming after the Gateway Pundit for trying to publish the truth and trying to get the word out there. And I love that you're not going to be silenced, that you're going to continue to stand up and fight this. And thank God for you and all the great patriots that make Wake Up Patriots a success every morning here, because if it wasn't for you and your friendship to this show, we wouldn't have these great segments. And keep going, keep kicking their butts, Jim.
I appreciate that. We'll do that. That's my intention. I'm not going to roll over and just be, cry in my pillow and go away. I have no intention of doing that. And because our country is too important.
Well, you can cry. You could also cry in your Porsche.
Right.
Which I think is actually undervalued, because let's just say you bought this Porsche in 2022 when there were no cars, right? I had to pay a premium to get a car in 2022, and I had to wait. And my car was more expensive than that, which it's normally cheaper than that. I also sold the car that I had, at, it was like a Cherokee, a Jeep Cherokee. I got $6,000 more for this car than I paid for it in 22. And it was 3 years old because there were no cars. So I think it's actually undervalued.
I think it's very undervalued. And
if you had bought it in 22, it would be worth a lot more. So they didn't get their facts right.
Well, and I'm here, and I decided I would look up some new cars here while we were talking, because I was kind of curious what a Toyota Camry goes for these days. Because back in the day when this whole nonsense came out about me and my kids were reading it, my daughter was one of the people that made me feel better. And she called me and she says, Mom, $17,000 and you did all these things. And meanwhile, there was all this discussion, the salaciousness that I had spent this $17,000 because I was trying to get a spot on the Housewives. So she says to me, so with the 17 grand, were you going to buy a used Camry so you could go on the Housewives with your Camry? What are they even saying? And she made me laugh. So I looked right now at the price of a 2025 Camry, and the sticker price on a base model is 40 grand. 40 grand base model Toyota Camry right now. So, is $52,000 for a car of any kind unreasonable in this Bidenomic America? Probably not, right, Jim?
Oh, absolutely, and I agree with you. When we're looking for vehicles, this is what you see today, and it makes me think: how do people buy cars? We know people are struggling. When we go to and get DoorDash for 2 or 3 people, it's almost $100. When did that happen? I just noticed that this past year, and it's it used to be $50, right, for a delivery for food. Now it's twice that. And so when they say that inflation on food is only up 20%, once again, they're lying to you. It's much higher than that. And I intend to do a report on that. I'm trying to gather some facts because I think that is one of the big lies, of course, that they're telling the American public, because we all see it. Everything's twice.
I love that. You feel it. You feel it. Grocery store. At the grocery store, you're there and you feel it. When you go to pay, and what I would buy that was $150 is now $350. I know, because that's the money I'm spending. I mean, they really truly think the American people are super stupid. That's the bottom line, or gullible or ignorant. I don't know what they think. But while we were talking, Serafina was in the chat. And she was talking about the fact that she ran into a Native American woman at the grocery store, and that she said that she's voting for Trump, and that the majority of the people, I guess, in her, family or reservation in the tribe are Democrats, but they're voting for Donald Trump. So will there be some sort of minority, tipping point that we're not seeing right now? Maybe Native American, maybe Black. Do you think that could be something that could change the trajectory of the amount of cheating that is going to go on, and sort of give us a favor maybe to have a chance at this 2024 election?
Well, I think there are 2 things that are taking place. One is that Trump is definitely picking up more Black votes. We saw that in 2020, he picked up 20% of Black males, and now he was polling at 10%. So now he's polling around 20% or higher of Black males, and he could get up to 40, 50%. I don't think that's a stretch at all. I mean, from what we're seeing and from what the movement, the fact that all of the top celebrities in the Black community are coming out for Trump is very, very telling. And I think that's in a lot of communities, like you said. Anyway, I think it could be a real successful night for Trump. But of course, Democrats, the other point to that is Democrats are going to do what they can to cheat. But I think the other point I wanted to make was the fact that I think today, and I'm feeling this, and I hope you guys are feeling this, that Americans are really on to the media like they've never been before. And I think they really understand that this media is doing nothing but lying to them. So it's really true when they tell you, that it's the hottest ever. It's 90 degrees in June or something. I mean, just the lies on top of lies. The food prices are only up 20%. We know it's much higher than that. And all of these things about Donald Trump, and I think people have caught on to it, especially COVID kind of opened a lot of people's eyes. So I think that could play a factor in this coming up election.
I think that's good. I like that we're ending this on a more optimistic note, Kristin. I like that. You know, we're sort of ending it with maybe there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe 2024 isn't a lost cause. Jim, I'm so glad that you joined us today. I hope that you'll come back with us maybe next week, maybe very, very soon. I'm sure you'll be in touch with Kristin and we'll make that work.
We'll have a lot to talk about this morning. They may announce at the Supreme Court, and this is our case, the Missouri versus Biden case on free speech. So that may come up this morning. So we hope we get good news there.
Oh, the opinion is on the calendar, right?
It'll be either today, tomorrow, or Friday, but we're hoping today.
Okay,
Within an hour or within 15 minutes, I think they're going to announce it.
Amazing.
Yeah. So anyway,
Wow.
that's good news. All right, guys. Thank you.
All right, great to see you.
Thank you, Patriots.
All right.
Kristin?